Yeah, they come halfway around the world. They fly halfway around the world to see our show. Like, we have Japanese people come to London to see our show. If we notice someone's coming away from Japan, we kind of try and do our best to kind of...
to kind of put a bit of effort in.
Yeah.
Matty enjoyed his time at Sylvia Young's, not least because there were 24 very attractive girls in his class compared to 5 boys. He was less enthusiastic, though, about his budding acting career. He always found himself stereotyped as a drug dealer or car thief in shows like The Bill or Casualty, and the parts were so small and were over so quickly that he didn't have a chance really to get into them or to use any of the acting techniques he'd been learning. Music was still his passion, however, and as a favour he found himself in a recording studio again, singing on a couple of garage tracks being put together by a friend of his called Miles Slater. One, he remembers, was rubbish, but the other, called Make You Mine, he really liked, and the buzz he got from going to London clubs and seeing people go mad for their song was phenomenal. It reinforced his growing feeling that making pop music was the thing he wanted to do with his life, more so than acting, or indeed anything. In fact, Matty's talent had already got him noticed by a company called Prestige Management. Prestige were essentially an American manager by the name of Richard Rashman and a Southend-based musician called Richard Fletch. And, as it happened, Fletch had also been helping out another child actor who really wanted to make a career in music, a Southend kid by the name of James Bourne. Prestige put Matty and James together, and Matty remembers turning up at James's big family house overlooking the sea, ringing the doorbell and James answering the door, looking like a complete surfer dude. The two realised that they already knew each other from the incestuous London audition circuit and hit it off right away. James ushered Matty into his parents' living room, where he'd set up £2,000 worth of musical and recording equipment, paid for with the money from his last acting job. James played Matty some of the songs he'd written, and they compared musical tastes and influences. James was into the high pop of Michael Jackson, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, but was frustrated with what he saw as the appalling state of current British chart music. He was a huge fan of the work of songwriter and producer Max Martin, who had created the gleaming wall of sound for NSYNC and Britney Spears, among others. Matty's tastes were a bit more gritty, raw and urgent, tending towards the punkish indie rock of Green Day, Blink-182 and the Foo Fighters, but he also loved pop music and knew that he wanted to do something with wide commercial appeal. James appreciated Matty's punk leanings too. Following his attempted mastery of the Michael Jackson catalogue on acoustic guitar, he'd persuaded his parents to buy him an electric model. Under the influence of Green Day and Nirvana, he'd formed a band called Sick Puppy with his mates Nick and Jeremy. They were all 12 years old. Nevertheless, they began writing songs and gradually progressed from their bedrooms to a rehearsal space in an old warehouse, where they added a bassist, Stuart. Their first gig had been in the car park at a school fete, performing all their own material, a grand total of 3 songs, played over and over, in a fairly derivative pop grunge style. From these inauspicious beginnings, they progressed into the Southend pub and club circuit, although as James was still underage, he would usually be chucked out immediately after they'd played. By the time James met Matty, Sick Puppy had already fizzled out, and James was enrolled on a music technology course at Southend College, which he was already failing, as he spent most of his time working on his own songs. Matty agreed with James that the charts at the time were full of a load of rubbish, and that they really needed someone to come along and clear them out with something decent. Matty was inspired by the example of Madness, an 80s band that his dad had loved, who combined great pop tunes with a sense of humour and a wacky image, as well as write incredible songs that captured the essence of what it was really like to be young. They had a string of top 10 hits in their day, all self-penned without any managers or producers pulling the strings behind them. This was the model that the pair aspired to. Blink-182 meets NSYNC meets Madness. It was a potentially brilliant formula.
This bloke jumped on stage when we were playing as well, and
yeah, he jumped over the barrier and jumped onto the stage, and then
started dancing.
Our security guys tried to clamber on the stage to get him off.
I wanted to dance with him. I was like, dude, let's dance.
It's quite funny, man. He just jumped over.
He looked like he was really enjoying himself.
Where did you come from?
Like, dude, give me him.
Age 17, James had hit a crisis point in his life. He'd decided to quit his music technology course before he was kicked out. He'd also split up with his girlfriend over a stupid tiff. He didn't know where he was going or what he was doing. All his hopes were pinned on a band that didn't even exist, writing songs with this noisy, untidy lad from Surrey who'd moved into his family's house. After a week or so of sleeping on the sofa, James's parents had set Matty up in the spare room. Now the two were spending all of their time going out drinking cheap beer in the South End Student Union bar, living the student lifestyle without actually having to do any work. Everyone seemed to have faith in them, their parents, their managers, but was it all misplaced? Did they really have what it took to do this thing? All they had to justify themselves were the songs that they'd written. Some like Living Without You, which would eventually evolve into a number called Psycho Girl, James had penned on his own before Matty had arrived. But he was most excited about the numbers they'd written in collaboration, like Sleeping with the Light On, and most of all, a little tune they'd come up with in the summer of 2001 called What I Go to School For. What I Go to School For began with a couplet, Can't tell my mates 'cause they'll all laugh, I feel I'm heading down that path. The next rhyme that popped into James's head was, for some reason, member of staff. That morning, Matty had told James how he'd fancied his old science teacher at school. They had the story, and within a few hours the song was written. Although the original recording sounded like a ballad, as James had accidentally laid down the drums at half speed and so slowed down the rest of the track to fit. But no matter, it sounded like a hit. It was cheeky, funny, contagious, and the best thing they'd written yet, by far. This was definitely the direction they should be heading in, but before they could top the charts, there was one other matter that needed addressing. You couldn't be a band with only 2 members, not unless you were the Pet Shop Boys or the White Stripes anyway. The as yet unnamed group needed a third person, and so, in time-honoured tradition, Matty and James decided to put an ad in the back of the NME. Auditions were held at Pineapple Studios in Covent Garden, and loads of people turned up. Despite the ad having emphasised that they were looking for musicians, not just singers and dancers, many people turned up without any instruments at all. Most of them were entirely unsuitable, but manager Richard Fletch spotted one particular lad waiting at the door who at least looked the part. His name was Charlie Simpson, and thankfully, his audition was great as well. Charlie Simpson was 2 years younger than Matty and James, and was born on the 7th of June 1985. He grew up in Woodbridge, a small village near Ipswich in Suffolk. His father was a successful chartered surveyor, and the family were quite well off, and as a result Charlie followed his older brothers Will and Ed to a fee-paying boarding school, Uppingham, in the county of Rutland. He soon developed a love for the drums, and at the age of 12 formed his first band, a group called Natural Disasters, who were named sarcastically by the school headmaster, and whose music was informed by Charlie's love of heavy metal bands like Guns N' Roses and Metallica. Their first gig was in a marquee at school speech day. Charlie went on to play in a host of short-lived school bands, including Fubar, Manhole and Spleen. If James is the pop wing of Busted, flying the flag for Michael Jackson and Justin Timberlake, then Charlie is its rock conscience, with tastes that run to the credible underground likes of Nickelback, the Deftones and Jimmy Eat World, as well as dozens of bands that most people have never heard of. Charlie's perceived poshness is also in contrast to Matty's working-class roots, a fact that Matt endlessly exploits through mickey-taking and teasing. Yet all 3 members of Busted complement each other's personalities perfectly, and the result is a natural chemistry that comes across powerfully in the group's music and performance. With the band complete, the next thing to do was to get a record deal. Armed with a home-recorded demo tape of their best songs, the trio made appointments with every record company they could get hold of, and went round them all in turn playing acoustic sets in the offices of their principal A&R men. The songs included What I Go to School For, Year 3000 and Crash and Burn, songs that would eventually get to numbers 3, 2 and 1 in the charts respectively. Yet incredibly, only 2 record companies offered them deals. Simon Cowell at BMG offered them £1 million to sign, while Paul Adams at Island Universal offered them substantially less financially, but seemed more committed to the band's long-term development. The group chose to go with Adams, and shortly afterwards saw Cowell, pop idol's Mr. Nasty, waving at them from his car window, telling them that they'd blown their chances. He obviously thought they'd amount to nothing without his guiding hand, and Busted felt relieved that they'd made the right choice.
No, it really is freestyle. I mean, it really is kind of just running, just kind of doing the show. You know, I mean, like when we kind of rehearse. I mean, our rehearsal time is devoted to kind of making the music sound as good as it can. So, like when we go to rehearse on the real size stage, which is like 4 or 5 days before the tour starts, there's not there wouldn't even be enough time in there to kind of, if we were going to plan anything, to plan it. It's just kind of you go where you want to go, you do what you want to do, and it's different every night. So.
Island Universal began their promotional campaign for Busted within the company itself. They had them play acoustic sets every Monday night in the staff canteen, so that everyone who worked there could get to know both them and their songs. After this, they were sent on a tour of all the glossy pop magazines like Smash Hits, again playing their songs acoustically in offices to get their faces and tunes known. Island next arranged a big showcase gig for the band at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, a venue not used to having the next big pop sensation premiered within its walls. For the occasion, the building was done up as a typical school hall, and after the show, dinner ladies served up bangers and mash and spotted dick to the assembled journalists, TV crews, A&R men and hangers-on. The boys played their, by now, well-practised acoustic set, consisting of What I Go to School For, Britney, Year 3000, Crash and Burn and Without You. Despite their nerves, they went down brilliantly, although they conceded that the free beer available to the audience may have helped. 2 of Matty's friends were actually caught by the band's management trying to steal a caseload and were made to put it back. In between all of this activity, the band were to be found ensconced in London's Brick Lane studios, recording their debut album. Producers Steve Robson and John McLaughlin were chosen because, between them, they'd worked with everyone from Def Leppard to Atomic Kitten, and so had the range necessary to facilitate the unique pop-rock hybrid that Busted were going for. One thing that annoyed the band slightly was that when the CD came out, it appeared as though many of the songs were co-written with the production team. In fact, virtually the entire album had been written by the band long before they went into the studio. Yet despite the basic songs being finished, Robson or McLaughlin would often come up with a riff or an effect to enhance the song, which would entitle them to a songwriting credit, and hence a percentage of the royalties. Busted were learning how the business worked, fast. They were also having to get used to the often ridiculous business of photo shoots and interviews. Their first photo shoot was at London's Trocadero Amusement Centre, posing with Dodgem cars, which they all hated. Matty in particular couldn't bear to pose for the camera, so while James and Charlie did serious or sexy, Matty would start gurning and pulling stupid faces, a trait which soon became his trademark. They also returned to the Smash Hits offices for their first proper interview, and the magazine put them on the cover before their first single had even been released. While bemused by questions of the "what's your favourite colour" variety, the band were flattered and grateful for the attention. Smash Hits, for their part, loved Busted because they were changed from the endless parade of bland reality TV spin-offs. Finally, they released their debut single on the 16th of September 2002. What I Go to School For went straight into the charts at its highest position of number 3 and got the boys onto Top of the Pops. The album was released 2 weeks later. The rollercoaster ride to the top had begun.
Musically, it always starts just from acoustic guitars, just playing riffs and messing around, and then something sounds good, you just take it.
Yeah, it normally stems from 2 guitars, definitely. That's the kind of what's there when in the writing process, 2 acoustics.
The album, Busted, opens with the single What I Go to School For. That, by now, classic tale of love and lust in the classroom. A brilliant guitar-driven pop song to bounce up and down to with mildly kinky sentiments. This song would eventually be brought to the attention of the real-life Miss Mackenzie, who claimed to be flattered, but denied that there'd ever been anything between her and Matty at school. Next up is the song originally titled Crash and Burn, renamed You Said No, in the wake of the NASA space shuttle explosion. This tale of being turned down by a hot girl at the school disco and the resultant heartache, embarrassment and resentment is relayed over irresistible chugging guitars that explode into an incredibly catchy chorus that's tailor-made for breakfast radio play. There's also a great middle eight broken by stabbing keyboard flourishes, half-inched from Pulp's Common People and the best na-na-nas in British pop today. Britney follows, a touching tribute to Ms. Spears, including spot-on impressions of her distinctive nasal vowel sounds. How could she resist the attentions of these enraptured young men, trawling the internet for naked photos of her and stretching her name out to 3 syllables on the chorus? Losing You is the album's first ballad, with the boys harmonising over jangling guitars and a subtle hint of strings about the end of a relationship, the protagonist begging his girl to give it, and him, another chance. We're back on more upbeat territory with the burbling, irrepressible Year 3000, an everyday tale of time travel, 3-breasted women, and Busted's long-term career prospects. Not much has changed, we're told, except that they live underwater, which is quite a big change, but that's the irony of it all, apparently. Psycho Girl is a ballad with a twist, about a girl who's everything I need, but I can't stand her. What guy can't identify with a nightmare girlfriend who takes everything you say the wrong way, and yet at the same time remains hopelessly attractive to you? Busted claim that the song is written from real-life experience, but like the gentlemen they are, they refuse to name names. All the Way continues the theme of male angst, dealing with a girl who says that she will, but then won't. You've got to understand, things are getting out of hand, they wail. You can't just leave me sitting here unseen to. Indeed, Sleeping with the Light On is a smouldering mid-paced number about breaking up, although the boys assure us that sleeping with the light on is also a good idea if you come home drunk, so that when you have to get up to go to the toilet, you won't walk into anything. And keeping one hand on the floor stops the room from spinning. Dawson's Geek is about a kid who thinks he's living in the popular, if sentimental, American teen TV show, powered along by spiralling guitar lines. When Day Turns Into Night is a vaguely sinister, slow-burning tune that starts off with the rasping insinuations of nobody's there when you get home, you're renting movies on your own, my photo's on your bedroom wall, you sit there waiting for my call. You keep waiting for the song to explode, but it never does, the tension dissolving into, of all things, a violin solo instead. It's one of the standout tracks on the album. Everything I Knew is a jangly rocker about splitting up and looking back at the good times, wistful, bittersweet, and redolent of hazy summer nights. The album's big ballad is Without You, a piano-driven epic written and sung by Charlie, whose vocal is reminiscent of Chad Kroeger, singer with US grunge rockers Nickelback, and one of Charlie's heroes. Underpinned by subtle strings and picked acoustic guitar, it's a powerful, mature track that was very nearly released as a single, and which would probably go down very well on American radio. The album ends on more familiar Busted territory with Loser Kid, which takes us back to high school and even mentions Miss Mackenzie again, the band reflecting on how they were always the misfits turning up to class in their sisters' jeans, the ones who were picked last for games and who no one wanted to know. Now everyone wants to know them, in real life of course, because they're pop stars. But in the song it's because now the protagonist is living with Miss Mackenzie. And so the album neatly comes full circle, and we're more or less back where we started from, proving that Busted are master storytellers as well as purveyors of perfect pop. Sheer genius.
Like, we know, like, we kind of know if a song's going to make our album, because occasionally if we're writing a song and we end up just splitting our sides with laughter. Like, sometimes writing songs can be really funny because lyrically, when we're coming up with stuff, you try different kinds of lyrics, and some lyrics that you come up with don't make the album because they're just, you know, ridiculous. Like when we write songs, the record label will be like, oh well, you have to come up with new words and stuff, and we kind of put a bit of a fuss, and then afterwards we realise, yeah.
Well, yeah, actually we can't put that out to anybody ever.
Busted, the album, was released on the 30th of September 2002 and scraped into the charts at the number 30 spot. This was obviously a big disappointment, and possibly it was unwise to release a debut album after only one single, before the public had really got a chance to know the band and see what they were capable of. Things then went from bad to worse, as the album rapidly dropped out of the top 100 altogether, going down to number 141 within a month. It climbed slightly after that, but remained outside the top 100 while Busted considered their next move. Year 3000 was scheduled as the next single, but the band had mixed feelings about it. Charlie in particular was dead against putting out the song, feeling that it was too frivolous and would see them typecast as a wacky novelty band. He was in favour of using his song Without You as a single. It was a strong contender, but ultimately its length counted against it, and ultimately everyone agreed that it would be better to consolidate the strengths of the first single than release a ballad so early on in their career. Year 3000 was released on the 13th of January 2003 and proved to be another huge hit, going one better than What I Go to School For by crashing into the charts at number 2. This catchy song, with a lyric that really captured the public imagination, was also helped along by a strong video that combined live performance shot at the Garage in London with animation representing the cartoonish world of the future. The night after shooting the video, the band played live at the Smash Hits Poll Winners Party. Questions about the exact age of their great-great-great-granddaughter in 3000 notwithstanding, the song made Busted a household name and greatly aided the sales of their flagging album as well. The LP eventually climbed up to the number 2 spot and stayed there for months, going first gold, then platinum, then double platinum in quick succession. You Said No, Crash and Burn, was the next single, released on the 21st of April 2003. By this time, the album had sold so many copies that the band were concerned that all their fans would already have the song on the LP and so wouldn't want to buy it again as a single. To counter this, they put out 3 different versions of the song, each one remixed by a different member of the band, along with a host of extras. So CD1 included James's version of the song, CD2 featured Matt's version of the song, plus a cover of the old Simon and Garfunkel song Mrs. Robinson, and the cassette featured Charlie's version and a new song called My Good Friend. The result was better than the band could ever have hoped for, and You Said No, Crash and Burn gave them their first number 1. Busted have always believed in giving value for money to their fans, and their singles have always included exclusive extra tracks, videos, behind-the-scenes footage and more. They've also become known for putting cover versions of classic songs from the past on their B-sides. In addition to Mrs. Robinson, the boys have covered Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl on What I Go to School For, and the Beach Boys' Fun 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 on Year 3000. The summer of 2003 also saw Busted embark on their first nationwide tour. The band were keen to emphasise that this wouldn't be a typical pop tour with dance routines, costume changes and pyrotechnics. Instead, what the fans got was an old-fashioned rock show, with Busted playing their instruments and singing backed by a full band. They were also treated to the sight of James moonwalking like Michael Jackson and Charlie smashing up his guitar on the tour's final night. The shows went down a storm, and being on the road allowed the trio to indulge in all kinds of wild behaviour. Matt apparently was the worst, his activities ranging from throwing fruit out of windows to passengers in open-top buses to hanging out of a 5th floor window because he had nothing better to do. In true rock tradition, they also trashed a hotel room and managed to get every artist on Island Universal banned from the hotel chain as a result, something they seemed unduly proud of. Then there was a night out drinking with Lee from Blue in Munich that has since passed into legend for all the wrong reasons. Busted on the road behaved just like a real rock and roll band would, and suffered the consequences.
We have the hardcore fans.
Yeah, we have the fanatical fans.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they seriously will go out in one time and buy 4 of our singles and stuff. It's
craziness is what it is.
Awesome.
It's brilliant.
Busted's first single from their second album was Crash the Wedding, released in November 2003. As the first new Busted material to appear since their debut LP the previous year, and an ace pop tune to boot, The single was bought by fans in their droves and gave the band their second #1 hit. The song was about convincing a girl to run away with you rather than get married, summed up in the line, "I stole my girl away from everybody gathered there that day." It's classic Busted, a joyous, catchy pop-punk tune with a strong narrative lyric and more good original ideas than most bands manage in a lifetime. Busted's second album was released a week later, on the 10th of November. Entitled A Present for Everyone, and cannily timed to arrive in the shops just in time for Christmas, it equalled the chart placing of Busted's debut, although it reached it a lot quicker, going straight in at #2. The album opens with a guitar-driven pop rush of Air Hostess, which, like many of the band's new songs, was obviously inspired by being on the road and the amount of tiresome travelling required in their promotional duties. In this song, fancying the air hostess compensates for their fear of flying, so bad apparently that they sing, "I messed my pants when we flew over France." They're constantly trying to attract her attention, and there's a reference too to what life has become like for Busted in the line, "The paparazzi's lurking, you didn't know I'm in a band. In England people know me, one photo's worth 100 grand. Crash the Wedding, the first single, is next, followed by Who's David? This song was actually written by James and Tom from the band McFly, who supported Busted on their first UK tour. The boys came up with it in a hotel room in Manchester while Charlie was downstairs in the bar getting drunk with some friends of his who'd come along. Every so often, he'd run up to their room, burst in and hear how the song was coming along. By 8 in the morning it was finished, and Charlie promptly claimed it for this album. In it, the protagonist is going through the messages on his girlfriend's mobile phone, as it becomes obvious that she's been lying to him and sleeping around, not just with David, but Peter, John and Mike as well. "I don't know you, I don't like you," the song concludes. The name David, incidentally, was chosen for no other reason but that it rhymed with invaded. She Wants to Be Me takes things one step further on from Psycho Girl, dealing with a girlfriend who's actually taking over her boyfriend's personality. A psychoanalyst would doubtless have a field day with the insecurities revealed in this song, a thrashy number produced by the legendary production team The Matrix in LA, who Busted had wanted to work with for some time. The girl starts out wearing the same t-shirt and sunglasses as him, then gets the same haircut, buys a red guitar and starts driving around in his car. The next thing he knows, she's playing soccer and standing up to pee. "She's stealing my identity, and I'm begging you, somebody notice me," the singer pleads in the chorus. "I'm fading away here." And finally, the pair seem to have swapped roles completely, if the nightmarish final verse is anything to go by. "I'm in the loony bin, wearing a pale pink nightie," it goes. The nurse comes through the door and whispers so politely, "Your boyfriend's here to see you, look pretty, take a bath. I love his silly band, can I get his autograph?" 3 AM, the next song, is Charlie's favourite, and one of his trademark soaring, angst-ridden rock ballads. It's followed by Falling For You, a dumb, fun, feel-good song in the Blink-182 mode, with classic na-na-nas, and the line, "The piercing in her belly, it turned my legs to jelly." It deals with the subject of inviting a girl to spend the night while the singer's mum is away, although his feelings about the girl herself do sound somewhat mixed up. That Thing That You Do is a touching love song with a vaguely 60s power pop feel, all beaty guitars and close harmonies. It was another collaboration between Charlie and James and Tom from McFly, and is nothing to do with the 60s set film of the same name. Over Now is a big, emotive, string-drenched ballad dealing with the end of a relationship, while Fake, written by Matty with Robbie Williams' old songwriting partner Guy Chambers, is about how you feel when your girlfriend fakes an orgasm. According to the chorus, she makes you feel like you're the one who's a fake, worrying, "Do I need to measure because I'm feeling under pressure?" And also, "She better not tell my mates today." He's determined to get better though, reading Cosmopolitan and hoping that the fear will go away. Meet You There is a stripped-down pop-rock song written in Dublin while the band were on tour, while Why is an epic rock ballad written by Charlie in collaboration with his older brother Will. Loner in Love begins with literally a dream of a love affair before the chorus hits home with the reality. "I wake up scared to phone her, realise I'm a loner in love. That's the reason why my life sucks." In the second verse, he makes the mistake of telling the girl's boyfriend that he dreamt about her. He chases him and smashes his teeth in. Better Than This is another collaboration between Matty and Guy Chambers. A song about the moment a relationship goes stale, In this case, it seems because the girl thinks she's clever and smarter than he is. I'm uncultured, but I'm not quite sure what that means, he admits. Why bring me down and complicate? The way you're talking leaves me not quite sure what to say. And, do you remember when we talked for hours on end, just being stupid, but at least we didn't pretend? Can't Break Through was written by James with a songwriter from one of his all-time favourite bands, an obscure American group called Neve. James called him up when Busted were in LA working with the Matrix, and they wrote this haunting breakup song together, which features an astonishing guitar solo. The album closes with the anthemic Nerdy, about a loser guy who fancies the popular girl at school. She, of course, ignores him, until he writes a love poem for her on the toilet wall which she sees. You said my words were beautiful, they almost made you cry, he recalls. But can't help adding, the marks on the wall seem jaded, did you stop to wonder why? Yet the song ends with an almost moral summing up. Just because you're nerdy and all your friends are 30 doesn't mean that she won't swing your way. She's got complications and a reputation, but go ahead and stand in her way anyway. It's a song about seizing the moment and winning the prize, something Busted have done in spades. With A Present for Everyone, they consolidated their position and proved that they could go beyond the fresh-faced genius of their debut LP to create something just as sparkling, but with added depth and variety. Busted were here to stay.
That would go down as the best thing that we've achieved.
Yeah, that's the best thing we've achieved. Next to making somebody walk again.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know we made some kid walking.
Some kid started dancing to our music and he was told he'd never walk again.
No, he told he'd never ever walk ever again, yeah. He started moving his toe one day to our music. And now he's dancing and walking and stuff. Pretty amazing.
The second single from A Present for Everyone was the uncharacteristically paranoid Who's David. Backed over 2 CDs by versions of the Undertones punk classic Teenage Kicks and the Black Eyed Peas' recent #1 hit, Where Is the Love, it followed Crash the Wedding to the top of the charts in February 2004. The next single in April was Air Hostess, which made #2, backed by 2 new Busted songs, Let It Go and Mummy Trade, plus a version of Peaches, an alternative rock hit from the 90s by a band called the Presidents of the United States of America. At the same time, Busted's protégés, McFly, were also beginning their own road to world domination. Named after Michael J. Fox's character in the Back to the Future films, McFly were the support act on Busted's A Ticket for Everyone tour, and like Busted, are signed to Island Universal and are handled by Prestige Management. They also sang on Busted's version of Build Me Up Buttercup on the Crash the Wedding single, and, as we've heard, co-wrote a couple of songs on A Present for Everyone. Their skate punk take on boy band pop is similar in many ways to the Busted blueprint, and as their debut single, 5 Colours in Her Hair, raced up the charts, they looked set to follow in their mentor's footsteps. Their debut album was co-written with James, and the 2 bands are all good friends, with Tom from McFly and James from Busted especially going way back. While James is helping out McFly, Charlie has gone one better and used his spare time to form his own spin-off band, Fightstar. Rest assured that Charlie has no intention of leaving Busted, and they remain his top priority, but Fightstar gives him a chance to air all of his new metal and indie rock leanings, and to get a little bit grubbier and more extreme than Busted would be comfortable with. Fightstar isn't just a Charlie solo project, but a real live band, consisting of Alex Westerway alongside Charlie on vocals and guitars, plus Dan Hay on bass and Omar Ibidi on drums. In early 2004, they played a handful of low-key live shows in tiny London venues and received some surprisingly positive reviews from the serious music papers. Songs like Until Then, Amethyst, Speak Up and Hazy Eyes have been compared to bands like Nickelback, 9 Inch Nails and Biffy Clyro, and in spring 2004 they went into the studio with legendary indie rock producer Mark Williams to record their debut EP. May 2004, however, saw Busted back in action and out on tour in America and Japan for the first time, before returning to the UK for a string of sold-out arena dates. In America, it seemed as though Busted were having to go right back to the beginning, promoting What I Go to School For all over again, as it had just been released as their debut single in the States. But at least this time they had their track record in the UK to prove that they weren't just a flash in the pan, and although it's sure to be hard work, America looks set to swoon for Busted the same way that Britain has. The Japanese, meanwhile, have always had excellent pop taste, and will surely take Busted to their hearts as naturally as anything. It's certainly a long way from those first hesitant demos in James's Southend bedroom, but Busted have followed their dreams and rewritten the rules of chart pop for the 21st century. They've proven that it needn't all be reality TV contest winners and manufactured acts, and that the best pop music has always been homemade and written by real people from their own experiences, rather than put together in some record company marketing meeting. Busted write about what it's really like to be young today, the worries and the joy, the tears and the laughter, the frustrations and the fun. Their songs are bristling with energy, excitement and humour, but they also know how to write a reflective ballad that captures the fragility and the pain of heartbreak. The three talented individuals in Busted are sure all to have a long career in music, whether they stay together or go their separate ways. And we're sure that their great-great-great-granddaughters are all going to be really fine as well.
Thank you for buying Maximum Busted, we hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for further titles on Chrome Dreams coming up soon. If you did enjoy it or have any comments or suggestions, write to us at Chrome Dreams, PO Box 230, New Malden, Surrey, UK, KT36YY, or email on mail@chromedreams.co.uk. Details of our full catalogue are listed on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and goodbye for now.